I'm Zach Nothing, and I'm about to sail to Fiji from Opua, New Zealand, and I don't know how to sail. What I wanted to do is document my journey of becoming a sailor, becoming a salty sea dog. I'm about to take on this voyage with my old man, my dad, and one of his good friends. And so a little bit of background. When I was a baby, we sailed from South Africa to New Zealand. And so my father's a really experienced sailor. My parents separated shortly after arriving to New Zealand from South Africa. You could probably say that having an infant on a 35-foot yacht for a year and a half is not conducive to a successful long-term relationship. So anyway, they separated when I was a baby. I've always been in touch with my dad, but this is some kind of at 34 years old now. We wanted to kind of rekindle some sort of relationship that we've never really managed to have. The longest that we've actually ever spent together since I was probably an infant is probably no longer than about a week. And now I'm about to get on a 40-foot yacht and spend a very long time with him in very close proximity. But also I really wanted to learn from him how to sail, because I feel like if he could get me here from South Africa safely as a child, I'm sure he can get me from Opua, the Bay of Islands, to Fiji safely, and I'm going to learn a lot along the way. So we decided to start planning this journey in May last year when he helped one of his friends sail his boat up to Fiji. I said to him that would be something that I'd really like to do, and so he started the planning process and started organising everything, getting the boat up to Category 1 standard. We then started our safety courses, our advanced sea survival. I started to learn how to sail a bit myself. Throughout my teen years and as a child, I'd occasionally join him on the boat, but I'd never actually learnt how to sail. I was always just a passenger. I started my learning process of how to sail about the summer that's just been, summer 2022. But to be honest, I think we only got 5 sails in over the course of about 6 months. He lives up in the Bay of Islands, I live in Auckland, so it's pretty tough for us to be able to actually link up. He also had to have surgery throughout that time, so he wasn't able to get on the boat, he wasn't able to sail as much, which did hinder our ability to get some practice in. So yeah, I'm going into this pretty green. The longest I've spent on a boat is probably about 2 days at most, and now I'm about to have about 10 days with not even seeing land before we get up to Fiji. The plan for the journey is to depart from Opua 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'm currently in Auckland at the moment just packing, and then from there we'll clear customs and we'll make our way to the Minerva Reef. Hopefully that's the plan, provided that the winds are what we want, and then from Minerva Reef we'll head back across to Denarau. The Minerva Reefs are a group of 2 submerged atolls located in the Pacific Ocean between Fiji, Niue and Tonga. When you look at one of the reefs from above, you can actually get inside it through a little opening. It creates this kind of little calm lagoon in the middle of the South Pacific, not affected by the swells because you're protected by the reef. When you're on the reef, you can actually walk up to some of the rocks there, stick your hands under and grab crayfish out by hand. Based on predict wind and the journey planning, we're looking at about 10 days, I think. Well, Marlo knows I'm going fishing in a way. Does not look happy about it either. Got up to the Bay of Islands late last night. Big shout out to Davey Dog for driving me up. Drove down from Kerikeri and then drove back up to the Bay of Islands, so I didn't have to leave my car up here because I'll be flying back to New Zealand at the end of this trip. And so a few people have been asking me if I'm nervous for this trip, and the truth is I've actually just been so busy that I haven't actually had an opportunity to think about it, and I'm sure I might get a little bit nervous when I'm out there, but right now I just don't even really know what to expect. Forecast is looking pretty good. We've got to have a couple days of low wind, but for the most part I think we're going to be averaging around sort of 11 to 12 knots according to predict wind. All going according to plan, it should be some smooth sailing. My biggest obstacle on the boat is going to be, but I really struggle to sit still and relax even when I'm on a holiday. I'm what I call an active rester. I like to be doing things, and the good thing about the boat is there's always going to be something for me to do. It's probably going to be being in that sort of confined space for that extended period of time. Also, given that I'm about 6'3", the boat height is about 6'1", so I do knock my head a lot. That could be a bit of a problem as far as frustration goes, particularly as I get in there. But the reality is I have no idea what to expect, and so I'm just going to take it as it comes and see what happens. Not being negative or anything, but just got a little bit of a will that I have to sign this morning and submit before I leave. Just cleared customs. It is significantly easier to clear customs going on a boat than it is even flying. Quick, easy, in and out, 10 minutes. Ooh, finishing touches.
Looks good, eh?
A few tanks of gas to fill up. So distance 771 nautical miles to the Minerva Reef.
Yeah. All right.
We off.
Right, let's put a Genoa on. What do you think, guys?
All right, that's us there, the little black dot. This is our path. To the Minerva Reef.
Good Genoa. My name's Clive.
I am Kevin.
I started with Dabjicks, a little 12-footer Dabjick, and then my dad and I built Spearhead. And during that period, I always had that dream to sail around the world. Because I had that dream, to sail around the world, and I was fortunate enough, one of my schoolmates, his dad had built a trimaran Pavlo style trimaran, 35 foot. And I was invited to go with him, sail it across the South Atlantic, Caribbean and North Atlantic. I mean, those are the days, no life rafts, no radios, no safety gear at all.
Stuff all charts.
A sextant doing noon sights. It's quite amazing, actually. And you and I'm happy to go whichever.
Alright, that might be the last land that we see for a few days. Smooth sailing so far, cruising along at 7 knots with an average wind speed of 750 miles until Minerva Reef. As the sun sets on the first day, let a relatively smooth sail out. We're probably kind of coming too close to being in line with the top of North Island. The old lands over there, trying to figure out how to get our AIS working so that we can see other boats tonight. We'll see how they go with the technology. So working in 3-hour shifts. First shift starting at 6 o'clock. I'm taking that first one, and then I'll get up and do the 3 a.m. shift. So first 2 night shifts done. Did 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Had a bit of a sleep, got some good sleep. Pretty smooth sailing. And then carried on from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Sun looks like it's only going to be coming up at about 7 a.m. So I might just go shut my eyes for an hour and then come up and check. Night shift's pretty chill, just trying to make sure the boat doesn't crash. But with the wonders of modern technology, it's made that incredibly easy for us. So just using the GPS here, make sure the wind's sitting in the right place in the boat and that we're on the right course. Easy as. Delicious feeds. What do we got there?
This is I've turned away. It's a
Pasta chicken,
pasta
made by
chicken,
Robin before he left.
stir fry.
Lovely. Just sitting here on night watch, expressing massive amounts of gratitude for the opportunity that I've been given to do this. Cruising along at 6 knots and 7 knots of wind. Beautiful clear sky that the camera won't do justice. Big ass moon. It's just stunning. This is living Barry. So I broke my glasses on day 2, so I'm going to be dealing with this for the next 16 days. How good. You know when you're on the aeroplane and you're checking how long you have to go left on your flight? Well, on a boat it's kind of the same, just a little bit different. Rather than it being like 2 or 3 hours, it's 98 hours. And that's going to get us up to here, to the Minerva Reef. Not even all the way to Fiji. That's a bit further up here. So this is what happens when you don't pump out the holding tank soon enough. You get shit water through the boat and then you throw it overboard. This little guy just jumped on board. We're using him for some bait later on. Also, don't worry, I got myself some speed dealers, courtesy of the boat. Keep us going nice and fast. Just on my night watch, 12 till 3 a.m. We've only got low wind, sitting at around 5 knots. That's coming intermittently, which means we're moving pretty slow and having to move slightly off course to keep moving. This is one of the tougher parts of sailing, as it comes down to the winds and on how close to course you can stay. The cool thing about the night shifts is that we work kind of like in teams, so 3 hours on, 6 hours off, and that means that you get that 6 hours to be able to get a decent amount of sleep or relaxation before getting back on deck. And
so after that, I met on that trimaran trip across the South Atlantic. We advertised for crew, and 2 New Zealand girls answered the ad. I ended up marrying one. That's how I ended up coming to New Zealand. Became an import. When I arrived in New Zealand, it was everything I dreamed of, from a sailing perspective. And I said, I'm going to live here.
So I met him in Durban. Janie, who he married, was a good friend of my mate. And I'd just come down through Africa overland and landed in Durban and rang these guys up. And they come and straightened me up off the pavement and took me home and looked after me over there for a few months.
That's because when I got to New Zealand, I didn't know anybody other than Jane, and got to know the family. And Zach introduced me to his friend, and he's become one of my best mates. Yeah, that was 1976. And then Zach and I got on the piss one night, and I think it was whiskey, was it Zach? I think it was a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, made a crazy plan.
We made a crazy plan.
Made a crazy cunning plan.
Cunning plan. We were going to build a boat and sail around the world. And we also named it. Before we even picked this design, we named it MASH, after the movie series MASH, because everything that MASH was about, was fantastic story.
Yeah, good times, hard times, Yeah. That changed, of course, later on to many amazing sunsets and horizons, or many alcoholic sunsets and horizons. MASH.
Yeah.
Bit of a leak again. Trying to figure out whether it's rainwater, toilet water, or a little bit of a loose pipe. Less than ideal if it is a loose toilet pipe, having shit water running through the boat. I'll just stay up here and make sure that we stay on course. So we've got 2 speedos that you want to take note of when we're moving. First one here is our actual speed. So that's our speed over ground, and then over here is our speed relative to our waypoint. So even though we're traveling 6.7 knots an hour, we're only traveling 6 knots relative to our waypoint. So when we look out here, we zoom in on that, you can see how we're slightly off course there, and so we ideally need to be moving at about a 14 to 16 degree angle, where at the moment we're traveling at about a 350 degree angle.
Talk to me nice, heels both take her, watch her walk to me nice. Say she acting bad with the bark, with the bite. Down south with it, pin my pot for the night. And we lock for the night. Might have met my match, got a spark, got a light. Tryna get attached, run it back, get it right. Gotta make a play, I'll be better with your light, yeah. On the way to you. On the way.
Bit of excitement, just a bit of gear failure on the boat. We've got a bit of unexpected shitty weather, and we were putting a reef, so bringing the sail down to kind of half mast, and we had a bit of gear failure. One of the halyards just completely gave way on us, meaning that we had to pull the main down manually, climb up on deck and pull it down manually. But now we are without a main, and we're 3 days into our trip. if I wanted sailing excitement, I got it. I was having a nap, and that's when I got woken up to help put the reef in the main, so bring the main down, and that's when all that action occurred. We've managed to find a resolution. So it was one of the halyards that broke, and so it just means that we're going to have to manually wind the main down if we need to at any point. So we've managed to get it back up now, and we're back on track. But just a stressful and my first scary-ish moment out in the big blue. During all of this, when we were trying to get the main down, the wind had picked up hectically, swells had picked up hectic, and Dad had to climb on deck to manually pull down the sail, manually wind it down at the actual mast. There's a bit of a gear malfunction as far as the feeding system, and that got jammed, and that's why the rope broke, the halyard broke. But yeah, it was pretty hectic at one point. My biggest fear was that it was just going to fall off, and then it was like, we've trained for this, but at the same time you don't ever want to have to do it in real life. So diverse. Lovely over there, storm over there, and the ship chasing us. Pissing down. Absolutely bucket. But making some good time. Night watch tonight is like being on a 3-hour long roller coaster. Got about 20 knots of wind on average, sitting at around 9 to 10 knots speed over ground. And let's just say it's twist, turn, it's hectic. An hour into my shift tonight, the autopilot turned off. And it's raining, so I'm just out of the rain, kind of in a bit of protection. But the wind spun the boat in a full, it's probably pretty close to 180 degrees, boom, swings across. I had no idea what to do. Grabbed the wheel, called for help. Luckily we managed to figure out what had happened. It was just a little bit of an electronics malfunction. But I suppose these things happen on the boat. It just happened to happen in 20 knots of wind and rain and in the dark. Much calmer day out there today. We survived the rough night with unpredicted higher winds than expected. So now the race is on to get to the Minerva Reefs before dark on Tuesday, because you can only enter them really safely at daytime.
We ended up looking at a couple of designs, and Peter Smith, Rockner fame, told me that forget the 36, and if you want to sail around the world, the best boat for you guys is going to be the KF 39. So we got the Holland deck made there, and we trucked it down to Lower Hutt. Well, Zach actually had this cunning plan. You know, we needed to build a shed around it, so we dug a 2-metre hole for the keel to go in.
Pulled a slab
put a slab,
put a pump in it,
because
put
you
the
know,
water table coming up.
you know, and away we went. They planted the boat, the calves into the hole. We had a whole lot of roofing and framing, so Zach built a frame around it and corrugated iron walling system and roofing system right around it, so we could build and work on it, in all weather. So that building process took us 4 years. 4 years part time. You work during the day and do all your planning during the day, buy your stuff that you're going to need for the weekend. Yeah, we got it launched at Evans Bay.
Well, it ended up going to Evans Bay.
Yeah,
that was the story. It was around Eastbourne that one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the marina.
Yeah.
Plonk it in the water, and all these people are there watching.
And I turned the wheel to the right, and it went to the left.
Get up back to front.
Back to front, as it didn't cross it over. Eh? So I mean, they sorted that out pretty quickly. We did a couple of days test sailing. And then we took the boat up to Auckland.
Yeah. So, hands up, this is where I started sailing. I never really sailing until this thing got launched.
Yeah.
So I woke up this morning to some unfortunate news. We had to make an executive decision to not go to Minerva Reef now. Unfortunately, the forecast for the next few days is all winds below 5 knots, meaning that we'll have to motor the whole way, and at that point it's going to be putting us at risk of running out of fuel and not actually having enough to be able to get to Fiji. So we'll just be floating around on the big blue pond. So as you can see behind me, it's pretty still out there. I think we're sitting about 2 or 3 knots at the moment, which is gutting because that Minerva Reef was like a bucket list thing to be able to get to, but as I mentioned, it's not guaranteed being able to get there, so onwards to the next location. Minerva's off the cards. The objective is to get to Fiji. Only problem is the wind is not working in our favour. We've got a lot of patches where it's going to be below 5 knots, and so we're going to have to do a little bit of creative sailing to get there, because the other problem is that we're running a little bit low on the fuel side. Well, we're not running low now, but according to the forecast, there's a lot of motoring time that's going to be required, and so we're going to have to conserve at any point that we can to make sure we can actually get there. After 12 hours of motoring, we have got the sails back up, got 6 knots of wind, travelling at 6 knots speed over ground, VMG 6. Dad stopping for a delicious Killcliff. Cheers, Killcliff.
Cheers, guys.
Ev's trying to de-thread the halyard for the main so that we can order some more and then re-thread that once we get to Fiji, because at the moment when we want to pull the main down we have to do it manually. So what do you think happened inside the mast?
This was all twisted up so much that it became a lock and it wouldn't come down.
And then just ripped.
Yeah. Alright.
First shower since we got on board. Don't ask questions. Apparently that's just what you do when you're on a crossing. Bloody hell, it feels good. Much needed, because it was starting to stink aboard. Plan was to bathe once we got to Minerva, but now that's off the cards. New plans, on to the next.
And we started the planning for sailing around the world, which is when I was 32. So the route we took is, to be honest, we didn't know what it was going to be. I mean, the first waypoint was Fiji, and once we got to Fiji, we just started talking to people and finding out, what's the route people took. So we had quite an open mind to how we were going to go around the world. And the first time we just went the Fiji, Vanuatu, we did the milk run, Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, then went to Bundaberg.
Unfortunately, I'd had to make the call to Clive when he was in Auckland with the boat. I've got to come and see you, mate, and have a chat. And I'd met this dragon, and Jeepers, what am I going to do, mate? I'm supposed to be going sailing around the world, but I've hit this dragon. So we had this tough conversation, because I'm supposed to be sailing around the world with them. And he said, oh, you know what you've got to do, Zach. And he was right. So they took off without me. Well, no, I went on the trip to Fiji and then flew back like you're going to. And then about 6 years later, I get the phone call. Mate, I've got a new wife and a new boy called Zach. Can you come over and come up with me through the Atlantic? And I said, oh gee, well by this time the dragon had left me and had taken the kids, so I thought, oh well, okay. I'll see you there.
We, the two of us, sailed it up through the Atlantic to the Caribbean, and Lynn and Zach flew to and met us in Marquesas, wasn't it? And then we went through the Panama Canal and then across the Pacific. And it took 30 days with a little baby.
Night 7. We're about 280 miles from our destination, and the race is now on to get to the marina by Friday lunchtime. We need to be there because any later than that and the tides won't be right for us to get in, and if we arrive on a Saturday or Sunday you're fined $1,000, and so trying to save those pennies and get there on time. So it's going to be all coming down to the wind to whether we're going to be able to get there. Dad and I had our first scrap yesterday after being at sea for 7 days, which I think is not too bad. Just a difference in opinion on learning styles and teaching styles, but we got through it and we're moving on. Not too bad considering we haven't spent more than sort of 2 days together for the last 30 years. I think the 7 nights of broken sleep are starting to catch up with everyone, but all things considered, I think we're doing pretty well. It's a war of attrition where you're chipping away in 3-hour increments, trying to knock off sort of 15 to 20 miles every 3 hours, shift after shift, day after day, trying to make sure the boat speed stays up and that we stay on course. On to the final leg, 125 miles, and it wouldn't be an adventure without a little bit of drama. Once again, woken up from a nap, boom swings across, snaps the preventer, disables our AIS, so now we don't have our tracking system. In about 24 hours we should be making our entrance into the reef, providing that we don't come across any more drama. This is a representation of what our morning looked like. Lovely.
Why would you stew it?
125 miles off. Sunday vests, number one. Fiji vests. Finally the rain stopped. Got a nice little sunset happening in the background. Shout out to Starlink. That little satellite on the back there. It's allowing me to keep up to date with a little bit of work while I'm away in the middle of the South Pacific. So behind me we have land for the first time in 9 days. As we come into Fiji, we're about to go through the reef, just getting our flags up, New Zealand flag, Fiji flag, our yellow quarantine flag, before we make our way into Buddha Marina. Breakfast runs. Cheers, boys.
Cheers. Drink number 2. For the trip.
So this has been an epic lesson in delayed gratification. I've been to Fiji quite a few times before in my life, but none have been as special as this. Arriving here as the sun rose after 9 days at sea without seeing land. There were highs, there were lows, but the lows are what makes the high days good. The bad days make the good days good. The bad weather makes the great weather even more important and more enjoyable. So it's just, yeah, it's truly an incredible feeling and experience to have accomplished this.
Ni mula te de sara Enda samai ve kunetale Kuna lagi lagi Enda satimi di pitakayani Talai pitimu anarana Kula malea ke vititale
Manaka! One beer and they still don't have their legs.